HBO has officially reassured everyone that the sacred trifecta of incest, dragons, and very enthusiastic sword swinging isn't going anywhere for at least the next 3 years. The studio just dropped a full-on Westeros roadmap, basically Marvel style, but with more fire-breathing reptiles and fewer guys in spandex. But the real nuke-level announcement, they're developing a direct continuation of Game of Thrones. Yes, that main saga, the one that wrapped up in season 8 and left half the internet in emotional therapy and the other half writing fanfiction fixes. And not just one sequel. According to George R.R. Martin himself, there are multiple sequels to the main franchise currently cooking in the writer's oven. What would you want a sequel to look like? Drop your chaotic ideas in the comments. And let's not waste time because today's news is straight up explosive. For starters, HBO has officially renewed House of the Dragon for a 4th season. Season 3 is set to drop in summer 2026 and season 4 will follow in summer 2028, giving us plenty of time to emotionally prepare for more flaming lizard drama and Targaryen family therapy sessions. The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms series also got the same treatment. Its first season premieres this coming January, and despite whispers that HBO wasn't thrilled with the project, those rumors turned out to be as real as a stable marriage in Westeros. The show has already been renewed for season 2, which is expected in winter 2027. So yes, for at least the next 3 years, we're guaranteed a steady flow of Westeros content, minimum one project every year, like a medieval advent calendar but with more bloodshed. And that brings us to the main event. During the Island Nor festival, George R.R. Martin revealed that in addition to the 5 or 6 prequels already in development, there are also 1 or 2 Game of Thrones sequels actively being worked on. And here's the key part. According to Martin, he's developing them with a large team of writers. So this isn't just, hey, wouldn't it be cool if brainstorming? This is full-scale production mode. Martin even doubled down, assuring fans that this isn't empty chatter. These are real functioning projects, potentially even full-length films, since he never specified the exact format. These announcements signal a massive tectonic shift in HBO's strategy. Up until now, the studio treated every Westeros series like a delicate quarantine-sealed specimen, avoiding grand declarations and big cinematic universe streams. But suddenly, boom, a Marvel-style roadmap, a stack of shows in the pipeline, and most importantly, they've broken the unspoken taboo about making a direct sequel to Game of Thrones. For years, HBO dodged every attempt to continue the main story, whether it was a Jon Snow spin-off or an Arya Goes West adventure. The executives kept hinting that the, let's call it spicy and controversial ending of season 8 needed time to cool off before anyone dared poke the main saga again. Well, it looks like that cooldown period is officially over. And with that, George R.R. Martin says it's finally time to start thinking about which 2 sequels might move forward. Given how wild Westeros can get, prepare yourself, because whatever they're cooking is almost guaranteed to cause emotional damage, internet wars, and at least 1 dragon dropping in unannounced. The most obvious path forward is the resurrection of previously buried projects. Kit Harington once said that the Jon Snow spin-off actually got pretty far before it was axed. According to him, they just couldn't find a storyline that didn't feel like a wet noodle. Rumor has it they tested 3 main ideas. The first one, Jon leaving with the wildlings beyond the wall after the whole oopsie daisy I stabbed Daenerys incident. This version focused on survival, hunting down whatever White Walker leftovers were still shuffling around, and introducing new wild tribes who probably also hate soap and politics. The second idea was political intrigue centered around Jon's Targaryen bloodline, something along the lines of Jon not being super thrilled with how Bran the Broken was running the Seven Kingdoms, and as a Targaryen, Jon being quietly nudged toward reclaiming the Northern Crown. Basically, medieval office drama, with extra dragons. And the third option, introducing the Golden Empire from the books, George R.R. Martin's fantasy remix of medieval China. In that version, Jon meets envoys of this empire, cultural misunderstandings spark, conflicts, and then the plot snowballs from there. Even a blind man on a galloping horse could see canceling this show was the right call. None of the 3 concepts look stable enough to survive a pilot episode, much less a full season. Honestly, good on HBO for not diving headfirst into the hype and actually showing patience for once. And if we're being brutally honest, the simplest and most logical option, especially considering George R.R. Martin's new spin-off announcements, is, yeah, just making season 9 of Game of Thrones. Not a reboot, not a soft spiritual successor, not a wobbly spin-off desperately pretending season 8 didn't happen. Just a clean comeback to the main story, fully acknowledging that season 8 was a certified what the flip were they thinking moment. Because let's be real, the awful finale left Westeros in one of the most unstable powder keg conditions in its entire fictional history. Let's count the disasters together, shall we? Sansa declared the North an independent kingdom. Bronn, a mercenary whose resume is 70% threats and 30% unpaid debts, was appointed lord of the wealthiest region, Highgarden. Meanwhile, a Lannister is technically the king of the North thanks to his legal marriage to Sansa Stark, even though the entire realm is now being run by a wise but physically frail Bran, whose leadership style is basically, I'll allow it. Saying that Westeros has started civil wars over far less is the understatement of the century. No one in their right mind in the north is going to accept Tyrion Lannister, who is still legally Sansa's husband, as their king. That's not political tension, that's a grab the popcorn, civil war starts in 5 minutes situation. Highgarden, the historic homeland of House Tyrell, is the richest region in Westeros, filled with powerful families who definitely did not expect some commoner named Bronn to be thrown onto their throne, because Tyrion once promised them a big shiny castle. And then there's Dorne. Why are they even sitting at the council table? Joining a new kingdom makes zero sense for them. Their last major alliance was through a Targaryen marriage, and that ship sailed ages ago. Plus, the precedent set by the North is right there waving its little independence flag. We wanted out, they let us out, so what's stopping you? The political map of Westeros after season 8 isn't just unstable, it's basically a medieval Jenga tower made of gasoline-soaked toothpicks. So from a storytelling perspective, Westeros is sitting in a perfect narrative disaster zone, the kind writers drool over. Independence movements, disputed claims, angry noble houses, a kingdom ruled by a man who spends half his time staring into space like he's buffering. Season 9 practically writes itself, and that's why many fans consider a direct continuation the most natural move. You don't need convoluted new continents or 3 half-baked Jon Snow storylines. You just pick up the pieces left scattered across the 6 kingdoms and let the political chaos go absolutely feral. Civil wars, betrayals, dissolved alliances, new power grabs. Westeros is overdue for another round of everybody suffers equally. So if Martin and HBO are indeed cooking up 1 or 2 sequels, it wouldn't be shocking if at least one of them turns out to be the long-awaited chaos-fueled follow-up to the main saga. Right after the final credits, Dorne, and probably the Iron Islands too, if we're sticking to logic, should logically file their exit papers from the 7 kingdoms. Sure, Bran could magically make all the rebels jump off rooftops, but that would be, well, a magical dictatorship. And honestly, that sounds like an awesome plotline for a series, doesn't it? Bottom line, if HBO really wants to continue Game of Thrones, the simplest way to do it is literally a proper season 9, full of political intrigue, fractured alliances, and maybe a little dragon fire for good measure. And yes, Daenerys has to come back. Her dragons flew off somewhere to the east, where you've seen cooler returns than a Game of Thrones revival. Plus, given the precedent set by Jon Snow, bringing the Mother of Dragons back to her rightful place should be, let's say, relatively easy. It could also retroactively explain her season 8 meltdown as some form of dark magic, a new power threatening Westeros. Honestly, that's way better than an Arya spinoff. And the second Throne sequel is already in the works. We all know that fans' main expectations will be updates from the 7 kingdoms and messages from Jon. Basically, hey, how's life after the finale? So why bother with clownish, irrelevant plotlines? A 9th season that continues the main story makes way more sense. Arya's journey west could even be turned into a small side quest within that season, which honestly is exactly how the original saga handled side stories. Other ideas for sequels like the governance of the North or Bronn's adventures in the Reach fall into the same category. No one really cares about spin-offs when the continuation of the main story is the most compelling thing for viewers. And from a hype perspective, a Thrones comeback would be the TV event of the decade. HBO knows it. Right now, the world of TV is in a new arms race. Netflix has its monumental Stranger Things finale, Amazon is rolling out The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and other big projects. And HBO? Suddenly, it's falling behind. Even House of the Dragon isn't quite enough to reclaim the throne at the top of streaming hype. So personally, we're betting on an inevitable season 9 of Game of Thrones. The only real question is, how long will HBO resist the obvious audience-pleasing idea before finally saying, yeah, let's do it? Because let's face it, nothing else would hit harder. As for the prequels, the lineup hasn't changed much. George R.R. Martin mentioned the work on 5 or 6 projects, but in reality only 2 series are in serious development stages. The first is the story of Aegon the Conqueror, how he united the 7 kingdoms. Rumor has it, instead of a full series, HBO might release a feature film to expand the Westeros universe and its throne-related shenanigans. The second spin-off, Ships of Queen Nymeria, chronicling the migration of the Rhoynar to Westeros 1,000 years before the main saga. Fun fact, a year ago, Martin was talking about 3 feature-length projects, so apparently one of them bit the dust and stunt. Animation projects, however, are all still alive. One cartoon focuses on that China of Westeros, the Golden Empire. It's set a millennium before the main saga, with nods to the potential appearance of Eastern cultures in future series. Another animated project is The Sea Snake, following the adventures of Lord Corlys and his 9 legendary naval voyages across the known world. A third planned project was supposed to adapt the fall of Illyria, while a fourth would explore the myths and religions of the North. That said, judging by the fact that HBO hasn't released any of these yet, even though cartoons are usually usually easier to produce, the studio is still hesitant. After all, the Game of Thrones audience is mostly adults, serious viewers, who might not exactly appreciate animation. Better to go full cinematic, they figured. And according to Variety, that option is still on the table. Not just on the table, but in early development stages. The Hollywood Reporter even mentioned that at a shareholder meeting last year, HBO officially announced plans to bring Thrones to the big screen. Since then though, radio silence. Rumor has it they discussed adapting Robert's Rebellion into a movie, another spin-off idea that never materialized. Someone also floated a trilogy about Aegon the Conqueror, but it's clear HBO itself wasn't entirely sure what it wanted for a while, frankly stalling a bit. The recent announcement of the cinematic universe roadmap gives hope that the stalling is over, especially considering that Warner Brothers, along with HBO, will soon transition to new ownership. Most likely this will involve a big promotional push. In such situations, the same thing always happens. Producers roll out a flood of announced projects to impress the new leadership and make sure no one loses their job. It's obvious to everyone that the potential of Game of Thrones is massive, and HBO will hopefully realize at least 30% of it. Maybe a little motivational shove from Paramount will push HBO's bosses to realize what people really want. If not a full remake, then at least a continuation of the main saga with a gentle fixing of the original's mistakes. Think Marvel. They ditched the underwhelming Kang and replaced them with the more popular Doctor Doom. So why couldn't HBO just release season 9 of Game of Thrones? What do you think? Which sequel should actually go into development, and what should happen to the Westeros universe? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's start the fan council early.